Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me once again. Saj Sadek here, bringing you another exclusive interview for Pack Passion. My guest today is usually somebody who does the interviewing rather than being interviewed. So it's a different experience for her. Very familiar face on our television screens for many years. She's worked on the Pakistan Super League. She's worked in ICC tournaments. She's worked in English county tournaments as well, and other tournaments all around the world. The one and only Zainab Abbas. Zainab, thanks very much for joining me. Are you well?
Thank you so much, Saj, for having me. I'm good. Just a bit tired after all that work, but otherwise doing well. Yeah.
Well, my first question is, how did you get into cricket? I mean, the love for cricket. Like my wife, she absolutely hates cricket, right? She doesn't even want to watch it. So, how did you get into cricket? How did that passion for cricket grow?
So I think I've mentioned this before as well a couple of times whenever I've had a chance to speak about it, that I've grown up in a very sports loving sort of sports fanatic family. And we were always into cricket because that's the number one sport in Pakistan in terms of viewership and following. And my father used to play cricket as well. He's not played at a national level, but he was pretty involved, in his university days. And back then, university cricket used to be really big because you had all these universities playing against each other, different colleges, like government college would play another college. And, it was it was pretty big back then. So I think it just sort of naturally transferred in my genes, in my family. That's how the love started. And I remember it grew as I grew, regardless of the fact that I was pursuing my education. I was always keeping a close eye on what's happening in the cricketing world. And, back then we had the ODI World Cups to look forward to. We didn't have leagues back then, or it was more about Test cricket and the ODI cricket. So I used to follow all the games. I used to read a lot. I used to blog back then. So I was one of those, cricket purists, fans, or whatever you want to call it. So that's just literally how I got into it, how I got into loving the sport.
What about playing? Were you a batter, a bit of a leg spinner, or a fast bowler?
Well, to be honest, I was a very average player. I mean, I can talk about it. I certainly can talk about cricket. I hope I would like to believe so, but I think playing is a different ball game altogether. And my full respect for all the women cricketers and the men cricketers who play the game. I mean, back then, to be honest, in my school we had basketball, netball. There were a lot of other sort of sports that girls was kind of encouraged to play. Cricket was a game that a sport that I played in my backyard. So, where you would just get the whole family, and then whoever wanted to be punished had to be standing in the field the whole day, just fielding. So, for me, it was more of a recreational thing as opposed to taking it up very seriously. I don't think, I mean, maybe I would have. I don't think there were many opportunities out there, at least in my school. And even if there were, I think I was more of just a slogger, one of those who loves playing tape ball and just gets down on one knee and then just goes for that slog sweep over mid wicket and tries to connect eyes closed. So I don't think that was very promising on my behalf.
You mentioned at the start that it's been a busy schedule last few months for you, but you've got a family. How do you combine motherhood, family, and the hectic cricket schedule?
I think that's the biggest challenge for me in this phase of my life. I've got two kids now, and they're both young. One is 3, one is barely like 6 months. But I think for me, balance has always been extremely important, creating that balance between my family life and work life. And I think what I love about this job is that it's not 9 to 5, and it's not like you're bound by a contract. You can sort of pick and choose your projects, the ones that you want to do and the ones that you don't. I mean, I think I would like to believe I've worked hard enough to be in that position where if I don't want to do something, then I can just take that time to dedicate it towards my family, my kids. So I think that is always a challenge because our work is very travel centric. So you can't just be sitting in one place and working on cricket because you basically following the team around, right? So even if there's a tournament happening in Pakistan, I live in Lahore, but not all games happen in Lahore, so you end up traveling a lot. So actually, majority of your time, big chunk of your year is dedicated to traveling. And as a new mother, that's not easy. So I have to just make sure that everything is in order, everything is in place before I leave, and also get a decent amount of break in between, which I'm going to get now, so that I can dedicate that time to my family. So that work-life balance is extremely essential to me because my family is also very important to me, and I you know, try and do the best that I can in both departments.
I know when I first started covering cricket, there were hardly any female commentators, presenters. You go to a press box and there'd be sort of one out of the 50 people in there would be female. But now that number is increasing in all facets of cricket. That's only a good thing, isn't it?
I think it's absolutely incredible. The transformation that we've seen, all of us have seen in the last, I don't know, 10 years or something. I don't know the exact timeline, but from whatever I've seen, at least in my career, like when I started, which is 11 years ago, there were female journalists, there were female broadcasters, but I don't think there were as many opportunities back then as there are now. The fact that there's so much inclusivity now for all broadcasters and for all journalists, I think it's just great because you're basically shattering the typical stereotypes that were around back then, that women can't really talk about sport. And I think that's changed now, and it's just great to see an influx of presenters, commentators, journalists who are talking about the game and talking really well about the game. Those who have played the game obviously have an edge because I feel like, because they've been there, they know what it's like to be on a cricket field, and then they can use that experience to talk about it off the cricket field. So it's wonderful. I honestly, it makes me really proud to see that there's so many, young girls who want to get into this. And to be honest, that is the number one query I get, at least within Pakistan, from young girls, 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds who are still trying to find their way or pave a path for themselves, that how do they go about it? How do they get into this? They want to be doing this. This is their dream job. And it makes me really happy because it's like, okay, I've made maybe a very tiny bit of difference, but at least some difference in my field and in my country.
What's the best and worst aspects of your job?
I think the best aspect of the job is that you get to talk about cricket with some of the very best in the business. Because if that's something that you love and you're passionate about, you get some really wonderful opportunities. It doesn't seem like work, right? If you love something, if you love your job, it never seems like work. And you would know about it because you're on the cricket field as well, and you get to witness all these games and travel around. So I think that's a huge plus point. But you were talking about cons. I think the very same point about travel is a con for me because, like I said, I've already mentioned that I find that to be hard when I have to take that decision when there's the wonderful opportunity around the corner, and to be honest, sometimes you have to let go. So, and sometimes you take it. So it just depends on the situation, but it's a hard spot to be in. But at the same time, I feel like, to be honest, I don't want to be complaining much because I feel like we're all incredibly blessed to be doing something that we love.
Who are the players that you really enjoy interviewing?
I've done so many interviews now, it's going to be hard to pick a particular player. I've had the the I've been fortunate enough to interview different kind of players from all around the world, and it's you get different kind of characters in cricket, right? That's the thing. You'll get the quiet ones, the ones that are very vocal, the animated ones, the ones that have a bit of a shy personality. So you get to see all kinds of cricketers. I think if you talk about Pakistan, because that's where I work and I know them on a very sort of one-to-one basis, I enjoy interviewing Hasan Ali because I feel like he is this ball of energy, and he's very honest in his views. Like every time you speak to him, he will say whatever he wants, and it's going to be straight from the heart. So I like that bit of honesty in him. And I feel like like I said, because he's such a fun character to interview, so there'll always be a bit of banter or humor. So yeah.
And who are the players that you don't enjoy interviewing?
I I mean, like, I don't have anyone in mind who I don't enjoy interviewing. I think I can't really name a particular individual. I think any presenter would agree that it sometimes gets a little challenging or hard to interview players who don't speak much. So sometimes you're trying to like really sort of probe them or try and get an answer out of them. And sometimes you just get like one word answers. And you could be asking 5 or 6 questions, but you just don't get enough out of them. So, I've obviously I've got that experience now to keep on sort of trying to get around in terms of extracting something out of them and all of that. That I know. But what I'm saying is that it just becomes a little bit of a challenge at times because you're like, all right, I'm trying my best here, but clearly not getting much. So that's fine.
Speaking of difficult interviews, Shaheen Afridi, you interviewed him during the PSL. Obviously, Lahore Qalandars had just lost a game, and there's a little bit of sort of chat around that interview. Many felt that he was a little bit rude. You can understand he was a bit disappointed. What did you make of that interview?
See, the thing is, Saj, that my job as a professional is to ask questions and, ask the right questions with regards to what's happening in the game or what happened in the game. That's my job. So I, as a professional, I think I was only doing my job, which is asking the questions from the losing captain, because that's how we work. We were supposed to interview the losing captain, and the rest, in terms of how it was perceived, is up to the public interpretation, right? So I can only speak for myself. I can't, I, because of the nature of my work, we get to interview all kinds of players, from all around the world. And, what we need to understand is that cricket is a very, is a sport which is driven by emotions as well, right? So if your team is on the losing end, one can't expect that their captain is going to come out with a huge smile and start, ringing praises of the team, because maybe he is a bit disappointed. Maybe he needs some time to sort of go back in the dressing room, comprehend what happened. Because what happens with us is that when you're doing a flash interview, it's literally a few seconds. You're coming off the field and you grab a player and you do it. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a sport, which is what we all need to remember. And we need to remember that everyone is a human. I can have a bad day, a player can have a bad day as well, and we should just learn to accept it. So, if you're asking me what my interpretation was, honestly, for me, the most important thing was that I try and ask the right questions, because that's my job. I needed to make sure that we were talking about what happened in the last few overs of the game, which is due to which the match turned, or the match went their way, the opposition's way. So that's all that I have to say. The rest, everything is open for interpretation. Sometimes we get criticized as well that we're not asking the right questions. But what I've learned to develop, at least in this field, is a thick skin. That is the only thing that can help you sustain and survive in this field.
You feel that Pakistani players these days are too media trained? I remember back in the day, you'd have Shoaib Akhtar, Yunus Khan, Shaheen Afridi types who'd come in and speak from the heart like Hasan Ali does. But most of our players these days, it's sort of like very predictable what they're going to say.
I think times have changed as well, Saj. So now we live in the age of social media. Let's not forget that. Back then, there was no social media, right? So you could be interviewing someone in one corner of the world, and it's not like the next second it'll be available to view for the whole world. Like it, that kind of exposure and access to us has only come now. So what's happened is, I feel, because of social media and because you're so sort of out there and open to interpretation, your words, every little word is analyzed. That's why I feel certain players choose to be a little more guarded. And that's their choice. Like I said, you can't really fault them for behaving a certain way, because we do the same. We all of us here that are in this field, we choose to talk about certain things and we choose to not talk about certain things, and that's fine. Because that's our own choice. So I really do feel like the times that we live in are very different from what they were, 15, 20 years ago, when the players would get away with a lot more you know
Tell us a bit about your sort of co-presenters and co-commentators. I mean, I get the chance to speak to some of them, and they're great people. So tell us a few secrets about them.
the Pakistan ones, or just the...
Any, any.
Well, I mean, again, really fortunate to work with some really brilliant human beings, not just people who know the sport and who know their cricket, but also people who've just generally been very good off the field as well, in terms of character, in terms of helping out, in terms of support. But when we talk about the Pakistan commentators, thankfully I share a really good equation with almost all of them. Whether it's our local commentators like Ramiz, Vakar, Wasim, Bazid, Amir, and amongst the women, you've got Sana, Aruj, Marina. I'm sorry if I missed Sikandar. All of them. They have been absolutely fantastic. But I get on most with Aruj, because I think she's just great fun to be with. And also, I feel like she's super talented. She's great at what she does. And, we just like to have a lot of fun, because what's work without a bit of fun? You need to be able to enjoy what you're doing. So, yeah, that's just about it. In terms of, I feel like everybody's got their own sort of, quirkiness. I feel like every individual has their own quirks, the way they work. They have certain rituals they follow. Like, so all of that. So I feel like there's a lot. There's a lot that we'll probably need a separate podcast for that or something.
You mentioned about the scrutiny. Whatever we write, whatever we say, whatever we do. Do you think there's too much scrutiny on sort of commentators and presenters and journalists in this modern era now, and players as well?
Again, it comes back to the same point, Saj. You see, social media is a double-edged sword, right? So it's a great platform to give your opinions, to be vocal, to also get some information in terms of what's happening around the world. It's a very quick way of being more informed, right? And you can use it to build your own platform. You can use it to build your profile. So there are lots of advantages of it. But then the disadvantages are that you're literally open to all kinds of criticism. And the keyboard warriors that are sitting at home behind their they're faceless, they're nameless, so they're sitting there and they are commenting on you. And sometimes it's constructive criticism, sometimes it's not constructive, sometimes it's very personal. So that's why I keep coming back to the same point, that one needs to have develop a very thick skin to be in this field. If you get swayed by what anyone is saying. And by that, I mean, either way, you know, one needs to just take the compliments and the criticism with a level head. That's at least my approach. So I think that's how things have changed. It's just a shift in where this world is going. So yeah, I think it's important to keep a sort of a very clear head and focus on your job, because at the end of the day, don't forget that that is your main job, to be out there presenting or interviewing or being a journalist doing stories or whatever, right? So you need to sort of realign yourself and get away from social media for a while and do your job. So I think that's the at least my way of dealing with it.
And finally, Zainab, there's going to be young girls watching this video, this interview, and they'll want to get into the field of cricket either through presenting or commentary or playing or journalism. What advice do you give to those young girls watching this?
So I think my first advice to them is that you've got to be extremely passionate about the sport. I think that is the basis of building a profile, and that is the basis of getting into this field. Any budding presenters, I ask them, that's my first question that I ask: do you love the sport? Because if you don't, then you will get found out. That it's as simple as that. I'm sure, like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we make errors or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is that your basics need to be very strong. So passion is the number one thing. The number two thing is hard work. So there is no shortcuts. You'll have to sacrifice a lot. You'll have to sacrifice your family time. You'll have to sacrifice a lot of other things that are happening in your personal life, maybe. So it's a challenging job. You have to be switched on. You could be having an off day at work. You could be having high fever, not feeling great. But when you're facing the camera, you have to be there, switched on 100% physically and mentally. And I've done that plenty of times where nobody would be able to tell that, I've had, I'm not great, feeling great. And I'm sure that all the people who work in this fraternity have gone through that as well. So kudos to everybody who, manages to sort of get out of that and do their jobs professionally. So you've got to be professional and you've got to be passionate. As cliched as these things may sound sometimes, they are essential. They are essential for success, for succeeding, for getting anywhere. Professionalism is important. And yeah, I mean, again, it's not to say that I've perfected all those departments. What I'm saying is that at least I try.
Zainab, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Really appreciate your time, and most importantly, keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Saj, for having me.